Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle Tech Talk series. Today we'll be demonstrating one of our applications, the Reports application, a part of our NG Firewall solution, and showcasing how many onboard reports we have, as well as showing some customized reports. My name is Shannon Bonfiglio, and I'm part of the marketing team here, and I'll be your host today. I have with us our Director of QA, John Coffin, and he will be going through this presentation and demonstrating this Reports app. So yeah, just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If you do have any audio issues, please be sure to select the correct audio preference on the right-hand side. If you do select to use a phone, you will need to dial in and use the access code that has been provided. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to rewatch or share this webinar with any of your colleagues. And of course, we have some team members on hand to help answer questions throughout the presentation. So please submit any questions you have through the Q&A box on the right-hand side. And as always, if we don't get to your question, or if you have a very specific question in terms of your network setup, you can always email us at sales@untangle.com or support@untangle.com. Now, before I pass this over to John, I just want to reiterate to a few of the audience members that this is a highly technical webinar, so if you're not familiar with the Untangle solution or networking concepts, then this may not be the best webinar for you. And we do have another webinar series called our 101 webinars, and those cover more higher level topics, and you can find a full list of all of our webinars on our website. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to John.
Thanks, Shannon, and thanks everyone for joining us for the reports. Probably the feature reports is probably one of the most powerful tools in the Untangle framework. So you really get an idea of what's going on in your network, not only currently but historically, and you can basically narrow down to items that have interest for you. So let's start with a few things. You know, the last few versions we came up with this dashboard, which is really reports in a smaller time frame. So in here you have, you know, your current memory resources, how your CPU is doing, and what's the count on your network. And some people have a little bit of confusion on this. So currently active is how many sessions or devices are actually having active sessions going across your network. So these are the devices that are actually doing requests across your Untangle. The maximum active is just how many have you had in like the past 24 hours? What's the most amount of devices? This kind of helps you regulate your license and see if you need more or less items for your license. Known devices is every device that Untangle's ever seen on your network since it's been up, and it's kind of useful just to know how how busy your network gets and how many different devices come in on that. And again, we have the sessions, and this is pretty much just requests that come across your box and so forth. We have the network layout. The map distribution is current sessions and where they're going at through geolocation of their IP addresses. Pretty useful on that to see if you have any traffic that's going to any nations that you want to kind of close off and so forth. Interface just kind of gives you a rough idea of how much traffic is going across any particular network. On these other ones, this is where we get into more. These are just snapshots of an existing report. So this web usage is the last, basically hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on your time frame, of your web usage. And this is really the, you can just click on the widget and it takes you right to the report that this is extracting the data from. As you can see, this is completely one-to-one of this. Of course, when you go to the reports, this is going to be usually a 24-hour time frame, while this is 2 hours at a time. Again, all these are different reports in a just smaller time frame, and they refresh automatically. So they refresh basically cascade effect so as you go through, and they're only refreshed while you're viewing them. So for example, the ones that are down below are not being refreshed at this point to save CPU cycles. So it makes it kind of useless. One of my favorites to have on the dashboard is my alerts. Just give me an idea if there's any trouble on my network, I can quickly look at that and see how to do that. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our host. Hosts, here are all the active hosts. These are boxes on my network that currently have sessions across my Untangle. I can take a look at them. This agent will tell me what specifically it's using to create traffic across that, and also give me some idea of what type of devices are having here. As you can see, I'm using a U25 as just a Debian box, and of course it's labeled as such. My Amazon technology here, it's a Fire TV, things like that. So I know quickly what they are, and I can see what usernames are attached to those. For devices, this is everything that's in your ARP table. ARP table is the MAC address converted to IP address. So this has all the devices that have been on my network in a long enough time where it hasn't expired from my ARP table. It's just a quick way that I can see maybe devices that are not generating traffic right now or are off, and I can see, if there's something specific on that. On this, I can go ahead and just, label boxes on here, and I can give them a username if I want to. So it's a little clearer what they do. And I can just assign things on there to make it clearer. And then I can create rules based on those usernames. Just a quick way to do that. Again, I have all my users, and if there's any quotas assigned to those. And I usually don't use quotas. Again, so we go back to the dashboard, and so let's look. So once we're in reports, and let's say we have a particular one we're interested, let's take a look at virus blocker. Let's say I'm really interested in having that on my my first view, my desktop, my dashboard, and I want to see that on there. So all I have to do is go down here. This report's not very interesting, so let's take a look at this. This is all. This will show blocked and cleared. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the dashboard by clicking here at the button down here. So I click on that. I go to my dashboard, and you'll notice now I have that report directly on here. And now I can see that in 2-hour time frames and see exactly what's going on there without going to the report itself. And I can also manage my widgets here. Like, let's say I want to use that every once in a while, but like today I don't really need it. So I can just unclick that. And now it's still in my list, but it's not active in my dashboard. That's just a quick way to do that. Some of the other things you can do with that, let's take a look here. And then let's say you're looking for a different time frame on these areas. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at the settings here. Let's look at this one right here. So right now I have it set to auto refresh every minute, and I'm using a time frame of a default of 1 hour. But let's say I'm more interested in a longer time frame, so I can switch that to 2 hours. And I'll just go ahead and click save on that. And now I have a longer time span. Now, one thing to remember, the longer time span you have for these widgets, and they're updated every minute, the more load it's going to put on your unit for CPU cycles and for the hard disk access. So you have to be very aware of that. You can't go crazy and say, I want all of them to be a day's worth of data. And then you end up having 16 widgets and they're all updating constantly, it's going to definitely put a load on your box. And just depending, if you have capacity to do that, that's great. If you're starting to get CPU issues or the hard disk is being used too often, you might think about reducing the time widgets on those. So I'll put that back. Again, that's one of the benefits of making those areas. So I think we've had quite a few seminars on this widgets and how they work on the dashboard. So they're really useful on that. So let's go over reporting now. Just going to put my back to the way it was. So we went over sessions. Again, I probably go over this on every webinar. The session viewer is probably the most useful thing to find out what's going on in your network and debug problems. I usually sort this by my client's address, so it makes it a little clearer which box I'm looking at. So I can go through these boxes and see what's going on them. I can see where they're going. I can also click on a particular session and get more information on that. So I can see, okay, I'm currently using the Slack application. It's a messaging. This is the domain it's going to. I can see the IP of that particular box, when it was created, and I can just find out tons of information what's going on a specific session. And that can help me, one, debug routing problems, debug blocking issues, debug high traffic. I can find out which traffic is going, like I can go over here to my speed and see which items are going through. Like, let's find out what's going on here. So this is my online session. I can see that's why it's taking most amount of bandwidth on my network. So it's very quick to find out areas and so forth. So let's go over reporting, which is what we're mainly doing. Again, it's a whole list of items. I can find out how many hosts were on my network. I can see the activity. Obviously, late at night, it looks like I had more items going on, probably due to backups and so forth. And then, of course, in the morning, I have more devices online. Kind of gives me an idea what's going on my network when it's used. I can look at devices, when devices were added. It's a pretty static network, so not much happens. I can look at my user events, what users came online, when users left, and so forth. It's kind of quick to look at exactly what's going on. Network. Network is kind of the raw, what's going on right at the NIC. So you can look at how many sessions I was doing and so forth, and how many total sessions I was having for a particular time. So you can see, I can see every single network, every single session that happened, even if it's SSL. Other things I can look at, I can see if anyone made any changes on my things. I can see that I can actually look at the direct changes on there. So it looks like, as you can see, I made some dashboard changes. I can see what IP address did that. Events, these are like alerts and so forth that occur on your system. And then we can go into the applications and so forth. Excuse me. So, top categories, I can see what kind of websites I'm going to. I can even see what specific domains they're going to. I can take a look at top content, where everything's going. But sometimes, these we have quite a few reports. I mean, there's hundreds of them. Sometimes they don't fit exactly what you're looking for. One of the ones I've done is I was kind of curious and like who is going to social networks. I can see here Suzanne's like the most social network user. And this is a report I just created myself. So what I did was I took top usernames and I took a look at the settings. So this is great. This kind of tells me what all the usernames. But you know, I wasn't really clear on like what kind of sites they were going through. So I was kind of curious on social engineering. So what I did was I just took usernames. So I found one that was similar. And then what I did, I was going to say, I'm just going to make a separate one for what I want to do. So what I'll do is I'll change the thing. So I'll say, see, we'll go to content type category, and we'll just add that. And we want to say, you know, social networks, networking. And then we'll click, we'll just click the save as a new report. And this will save our new report for different styles. And this is this new one over here, I have here. So I can see I have my web category, and it's equals social engineering, social networking. And I'm able to see specifically on one category the usernames going to that particular category. And I can even take it one step further. I can go ahead and add this new report that I customize and add it to my dashboard. So I can click dashboard. So if I go to my dashboard and at the bottom, just wait for it to refresh. And now I have my custom report directly on my dashboard. So as you can see, Untangle works very well to customize exactly the type of reporting that you're looking for and how to use that. Again, some of the things about reporting also is that you can go from, you know, huge date ranges on what's going on in your traffic. So this is, you know, obviously for one day. So I can go ahead and just go, like, I want to see what's been going on like the past month, for example. And I can just hit refresh. And as you can see, I'm probably the biggest user of our network by far, over a month span. So that kind of gives me an idea of what's going on with that. I can also look at viruses, like, you know, we do protect from viruses, but, you know, I kind of want to see, you know, what's been going on over the last month. Like, have I had any viruses? Because I couldn't remember, like, did I get any alerts and so forth. So I'm looking at, like, so I haven't had any viruses over the month as far as through web applications. So I can take a look at bandwidth. You know, I can take a look at who's my top user for the month. I can make changes on this for whatever date range. If you have enough storage, you can change your date holding to a year and see like the entire thing for a year. But you have to be careful that you're not excessive on how much date compared to how much you dart. And how much data is held is strictly how big your hard disk is. So if you go over here to apps, and I go to my reports, and I can look at my data. So right now I have it set to 45. This machine has a fairly small hard disk, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it only has a 60 gig hard drive in it at the time. So I keep 45 days worth of data at a time. This machine's a fairly new install, so it hasn't really filled up the disk very much so far. Before I go any other areas, Shannon, do we have any questions from the board?
Yeah, there were some questions that were from earlier when you were demoing the dashboard. I'm not sure if I can understand this. It says when you were talking about putting a load on the box, so they're asking, doesn't this only happen if the dashboard is loaded on the web browser?
That's correct. The access to the information, the updates and so forth only happen when the web browser is active. And that actually brings up a good point that we highly recommend that that you manage your Untangle remotely instead of on console. Unfortunately, the Chrome does take a lot of CPU and memory. So if you're running that directly on the console, it will take a significant, we're saying like quite a bit of CPU and memory directly. So it's highly recommended that you log in remotely and do that. And for the question is, yes, the dashboard only takes CPU time when you're looking at it. So if you don't have it up all day, like I do, and you're just looking at it when there's problems, it's great. I mean, just definitely load it up and use as many as you want.
Okay, great. And then there was another question, can you change the unit of measurement from bytes to bits?
You can, not overall, but you can actually do it on each report. Let's just find one right now. For example, this one right here. Oh, from bits to bytes? Unfortunately, no. You can change the unit measure, which is megs or Ks, kilos, but you can't change bits to bytes. I guess you could do a little bit of the math. Let's take a look at one of these. I've not had anyone. Unfortunately, I have it set for a month right now, so it takes a bit. For those curious, this is a U25W. Yeah, this will take quite a bit.
Yeah, there's another question. Someone was asking, you are showing the old rack, and they're wondering how they can see that again.
Oh, yes. So if those are going there, all you have to do is go to your administration and skins, and you just choose modern rack. I've actually been wanting to change that back to simple gray. So that's the way you do that. It's really simple if you really want to do that. I've actually I've seen this for years. I've been working on Untangle quite a long time, and I'm so used to this, but I've actually liked the new, simpler icons.
Can you show those, John?
Sure. So we'll go here, and we'll just change it back. Simple gray, and then we're going to do an update. And for those who manage their Untangle through mobile phones, the simple layout is much better on the phone. Takes a lot less data. The browser also works better. So here's a more simplified view. This makes it really nice. And you still get the same information. The only thing is you actually have to click on the apps. So the information that used to be, actually has more information because it carries it all, that you used to see on the rack is actually in the status page now of the individual application. Let's go back to reports here, and let me see about converting that over. Let's look at bandwidth. And I need to do a quick one so I can change the date here so it's not so far in advance. Okay, so let's take a look at total bytes. So let's see if we can change that. So if you want to do bits, I'm trying to look here. Yeah, you could change the units here and then just do a little bit of math on the actual value that comes on here. In here, you would change the bytes here, and you'd have to find the conversion. I think it's 8:1 bits to bytes. So you could convert that and then just change your units to the lower B to give you bits, and that would give you the information that you're looking for. So that is possible. All right. Any other questions that we needed answered, or
Someone said they were having some non-responsiveness issues when they were creating reports. If we had any recommendations on how to solve that.
Yeah, so if, for example, your reports are not, usually it's that either your box is too busy or the access speed on your hard drive is not slow enough. This one's pretty snappy that I'm demoing because I'm using an mSATA drive, and those they have no moving parts, so they're pretty snappy and it works. The problem is they're usually very small in size, so if you're looking for a lot of data. The other thing is if you need a lot of data but you want fast access for especially long periods of time, think about setting up an array, a striped array, to use that on there. So it's all based on hardware. Take a look at that. Also try to minimize the range of data that you're looking at and how the tables are set. Just for those who are looking, where do we get these items and where do we get these names? These all come from the SQL tables that's in that schema is published. So if we go to the wiki and you just type schema, and this will give you the database schema, so you can get any kind of table and so forth and get that data if you want to do a custom report. So with this segue about where the databases are, let me show you a little bit of advanced features that we're going to be having in our next version. So this is 13.2, which is not released yet. So we're going to make it even easier, because right now the problem is, if I want to create a report, I literally have to kind of search through the existing reports, find one I like, clone it. I have to clone that report, and then make modifications to the cloned report. With 13.2, you'll be able to just say, I want a web report, I'm going to create a new one, and I'm just going to say new. And basically you start with a blank, I can add title, I'm going to make it a web filter, I want this report to be a time graph, these are the datas I'm going to pick, I want a line graph. And then you can go ahead and just put in what data you want. I want to use this event, and I'm going to use this ID. And I can go ahead and add everything I need in there with my SQL conditions. So we are definitely making reports a much easier thing to use. It's constantly evolving. We're looking into even more items you can do it. One of the things people ask for is if they're using Command Center, I want to aggregate the reports from all my untangles. We're definitely going down that path, so you'll be able to use reports actually in Command Center. So that'll be in some future date. But definitely look in 13.1, 13.2, which you'll be able to create reports from scratch, and you won't have to look up the table notifications in the wiki. You actually will have them directly on the Untangle itself, so you can just select what you need and quickly make changes to whatever to make a custom report. Right, let's take a look. So we talked about standard reports. You can customize the report, the new creating reports, and let's talk about email templates. So one of the things that you can have every night is a report sent to you through your email. And these are basically reports that are generated each night. If I can only get to it. So as you can see, there's some kind of standard reports that we have that you can look at. One of the ones I generate is just, I want to see what my data usage is. My provider started putting caps on it, so I actually want exactly how much data is done, sent through it. So what I can do is, I can add a new report, I can, give it a title, I can select, these are actually from my reports. So if you have a custom one in there, for example, if we go to web filter, I can pick out specific ones. Let's see, we want web filter, and I want top requests by usernames. So I want to select that. I can add that to my report, and then that will enable me to get an email report, and I don't even have to log into my box. It's just every morning or whenever you decide to get these reports. And you can create different reports for different users. Let's say, you know, the IT director is he's just more interested in bandwidth usage. You can have an email sent with just the bandwidth usage. If you're an administrator, you're like interested more in like you know, were there any problems with the network? So you could probably send, you know, some intrusion prevention reports or bandwidth also in there. Maybe your HR department wants to look at, you know, web violations, so they could get a, you know, web blocking or flagged report based on IP addresses, usernames, and so forth, and they can have that. So it's a real powerful tool to kind of automate your tasks that you have to do with your firewall and reporting, and it's quite useful to do. I think that's all the questions all the areas I had. Again, there's a ton of information on the reports and how to make custom ones on the wiki. Also, the schema is available for our database that's on the Untangle and how we keep all the information. So definitely take a look at that. It will definitely help you a lot, quite a bit, on the different areas. And then I can't emphasize more. If you have specific questions on what you want to do, definitely post on the forums. I think Untangle is one of the few places that you can get direct access to development engineers through the forum. Myself and Dirk are on there pretty much you know, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week to answer your questions with anything you might have. Any more questions, Shannon?
Yeah, some just came in. Someone's saying they went to web filter reports for top sites by size, and there's no graph view options. So maybe they haven't upgraded yet.
Let's see. They were looking at, I'm sorry, what was that again?
Top sites by size.
All right. So if you're not seeing the graph and so forth, take a look. You do have to have version 12. I mean, first of all, let me tell you, I really recommend getting on 13.1. It's really solid. We fixed a ton of bugs in reports. We made a huge overhaul in reports in 13.0. We definitely found some issues with certain configurations, and definitely be on the latest. So if you do have a specific, please post it on the forum with some screenshots of what you're seeing. I'll be glad to help you out. Myself or Dirk will be glad to figure out what your problem is and get that through there. But we probably need to look at what you're seeing to get an idea.
Thanks, John. Can report users that are not Untangle admins log into Untangle and view the reports on any device?
Oh, that's a great question. So the answer is yes. So what you need to do is you need to go over to apps and then just go to reports. And you can create what's called report users. So I can go ahead and just add someone to this and just say I only want them to access reports. And what we do is at that point they'll be able to go to their box. Let me bring up a different browser here so you can see what they'll see. Let's see here. So they'll go to a special URL called reports. And of course, let me just go to my own. So they'll get this login, and they will type in their username, and they will only access reports. And they'll be able to basically get this view and access anything they want on reports. So that's a great question. Yeah, one of the more powerful features. Like, definitely, there's going to be people in your organization that will need access to reports because they're going to need to look at things that's going on there, but you don't want them to make setting changes. So this is an easy way that you can make them a report user, but they don't have access to make changes on the box itself.
And then a follow-up question to that is checkboxing the email alerts. Is that them receiving the reports in an email, correct?
Correct. So they can actually see, you can set up templates and have them emailed reports and so forth. So they don't have to get those alerts. You can just create a username and have them set there, or they can go ahead and have the templates, and then you can select which templates that they'll be getting. So they don't have to get them all. They can get specific ones. Like we talked about, your director IT might just care about bandwidth. Your HR department might only care about violations. So they only get the report that they're interested in, and they don't have to see anything else. And nice thing is you can create users, and when they get the report, they want to dig in to find out more information about that report, they can go in and log into the box, and you don't have to worry about them making setting changes.
Great, I think that's about it. If you have any other questions, please just submit them in the Q&A box. There's one question just came in. Can report users see the dashboard?
They cannot.
Okay.
The dashboard is only for admins.
Perfect. So if this was completely confusing to you and you want assistance with setting up reports or making custom reports, we do offer professional services if support's not able to help. So that's always an option for you. We have a very large slew of technical engineers on hand that can help you. Let's see, what's the next slide? So as John mentioned, we have a bunch of resources for you. Not only do we have our sales and support teams that are available to chat with, but as John mentioned, we have the wiki, which is all of our technical documentation, and the forums, which, as John mentions, is our community. So you can post, if you don't want to talk to support, you can post your comment on there and let our technical expertise help, or any other people that want to comment. We do have a couple new webinars coming up in the next couple weeks. These are our 101s that I was mentioning earlier. So if you're not familiar with Untangle, or if you know someone that's looking for a solution, we have our 101 on Intro to NG Firewall coming up in a couple weeks, and then also NG Firewall for schools in December. Let's see, a couple questions just came in, John. Let me look. This webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch this at your own convenience. And then, John, there was one question: how to customize event notifications when they are IPsec or multi-WAN?
So in the current version, I think what a lot of people are looking for are an IPsec, and I could be wrong, and definitely put more information on there that you want. But again, you can definitely change this. But what a lot of people are looking for in a venting is they want to know when their IPsec tunnel is down. And let me tell you, I'm the most advocate for that. I obviously have a lot of IPsec tunnels, and they do go down, and I only find out when people call me and say, hey, I can't get to this. So in 13.2, you'll be able to actually put kind of like WAN failover. You'll be able to put a test in for your IPsec tunnel and realize when it's actually down. Because sometimes, even though IPsec is showing a connection, there's no traffic. Traffic can't flow through across for various reasons. Hand check, expired, and so forth. So we're adding a new feature, and you'll be able to get an email alert. Same way you can get an email alert today saying your WAN is down. Kind of like this alert. Where is it? Right here. The WAN is offline. You'll have one that you can select to say, let me know if the IPsec tunnel is down, and you can get an email describing exactly which tunnel is down, so you can go in and make setting changes as you need to.
Someone's asking if you can show how you can add a custom report to be emailed.
Sure. So there's two different things. So one is a custom report and so forth that you have. For example, I have this one with the there's my usernames by social media. I think it's under application control. Oh, wrong in the box. That doesn't help. So I have this top username. So if I go over here to config, and let's go apps, and then we want ports, email template. So I'll go ahead and say add, and then I'll go through and go through my apps. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add and web filter, and see how I have this. It'll show up in there. You do have to refresh your browser after you add the report, so this list is updated. You won't have to do that in 13.2. We fixed that issue. So here I'll just I made this new report, and I'll go ahead and just add that to my report. And as you see, it gets added right to the bottom. So all the reports, even the ones you create custom, are in this drop-down menu.
Okay, thanks, John. I think that's about it. If you have any more questions that we didn't get to or that come up later, you can always hit us on the forums or email us at sales@untangle.com, support@untangle.com. We're here to help. As I mentioned, we have some webinars coming up, and so we hope to see you in a couple weeks. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, John.